I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to take a seat. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Niskayuna. My name is Keith Frary. I'm the chair of the board. I'd like to welcome everyone. Happy New Year. And let's call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Here.
Mr. Lataif,
Here.
Mr. Gentile,
Here.
Mr. Daly,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Antonikowski,
Here.
Chairperson Frary.
Here. First, I think everybody's aware of this, but we only have one case tonight. The second case was withdrawn. Is that correct, Laura? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. As I said, my name is Keith Frary. I'm the chair. This meeting is being recorded, so when your case is called, we'd ask you to come up to the microphone, make sure and give your name, give your address, make sure and when you're speaking and addressing the board, if you could talk into the microphone so we're sure to pick up all the sound and get everything recorded. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have a distinct legal criteria which we make our decision about. You'll be asked some questions by the board members. The questions they ask are specifically geared toward the criteria, the legal criteria that we have to apply. It may sound strange. One may wonder why we're asking them. That's the reason. So why don't we go ahead and call our only case?
How about the minutes first?
Oh, yes.
Yes, as a point of order.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Green. We do need to approve the January minutes. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to take a look at them.
December.
December, thank you. The December minutes, December 21st. If everybody's had a chance to take a look at them, any changes, corrections with the December minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Abstain.
Mr. Lataif,
Yes.
Mr. Gentile,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Green, Mr. Antonikowski,
Yes.
Chairperson Frary.
Yes. Minutes are accepted. Now let's call the case.
The appeal by Jay and Deborah Yablon for a variance from section 220-25A4 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskayuna as it applies to the property at 910 Northumberland Drive, Niskayuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to maintain a 6-foot fence which does not comply with the ornamental side of the fence facing away from the lot. Section 220-25A4A states, "The ornamental side of any fence, if there is an ornamental side, shall face away from the lot on which it is located. As constructed, the ornamental side of the fence does not face away from the lot, therefore a variance from this section is required." 11 notices were sent, 4 responses.
Would the applicant please come up?
There's
Yeah.
4 responses.
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry, you do have a...
Yeah, I do have 4, actually.
Oh, okay.
Dear Niskayuna Zoning Board of Appeals, thank you for contacting us regarding this matter. Yablon scheduled for appeal meeting 1/18/2023. Please be advised that we are satisfied with the fencing as installed. Ann Quelzow and Lee Klein, 918 Northumberland Drive. Second message. Hello, Mr. Canizzo. I live at 911 Northumberland Drive, and I received the letter regarding the fence at 910 Northumberland. I support the continued lawful non-conforming use with the ornamental side facing Northumberland. I have no issue with the fence as is. Lori Cohen. To whom it may concern, appeal by Jay and Deborah Yablon for a variance from section 220-25A4. I would like to express my opinion that a variance should not be given to avoid complying with this zoning ordinance. As far as I can see in our neighborhood, all of the other property owners comply. The result is more aesthetically pleasing neighborhood. I also think it is unfair to the adjacent property owners who have to view the backside of the fence on a daily basis. In addition, it may affect resale values for those properties. It has been brought to my attention that others in the neighborhood feel the same but are hesitant to express their opinions for a variety of reasons. I have been told that the Yablans were given notice to comply early in the project but continued even knowing it was in opposition to the zoning ordinance. I'm asking to remain anonymous. Respectfully, a neighbor of 910 Northumberland. And to whom it may concern, I am writing in regard to the appeal of Jay and Deborah Yablon of 910 Northumberland Drive for a variance from section 220-25A4 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna that states that the ornamental side of any fence must face away from the lot. Based on conversations with neighbors both on Northumberland and on Inman Road, and my own personal opinion, I would like it on record that we object to the granting of this variance. Though this is an issue primarily of aesthetics, we also collectively feel that Mr. and Mrs. Yablon should be expected to follow the rules as the rest of us have. Each of us at some point has had some construction or work done on our property, and at times there were additional steps required. But we went through the proper process, and abided by the rules of the community. Making an exception for someone who did not have any regard for the rules or the neighborhood is unfair and sets the wrong precedent. We thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, neighbors of 910 Northumberland Drive. That's what I have.
Can you tip the microphone up just a little bit? Thank you.
I've got a green light now.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name again is Bruce Trachtenberg. Some of you know me as a former town justice here in the town of Niskuna. I appear as a friend of the Yablons, and I'm familiar with the situation. The first thing I have to ask is whether a variance is needed at all, because this was the repair of an existing condition. Part of the fence was repaired in the same manner that it had been up, and a continuation of the lawful nonconforming uses is permitted according to section 220-49. The Yablons bought the house with this fence in it, I believe 1992 is when they bought it, and I believe it preceded the section of law you're citing. My understanding is that the lady who lives behind them on the other side said okay, but her husband is the one who complained. I respectfully submit that because it is a continuing nonconforming use, it's exempt. If the board feels it has to issue a variance, it should. It harms no one. I don't believe that the Yablons intentionally violated anything. And frankly, if this had come before me in town court so many years ago, I'd have dismissed it in the interest of justice. It is a fence prepared in the same manner, repaired. It is a part of a fence repaired in the same manner that it existed. So I thank you all for your consideration. I ask you to, one, determine whether or not it needs a variance because it's a continuing nonconforming use, and if it does, grant it to them. Thank you.
Counsel?
So historically, when we have a legal nonconforming use that is taken down and reconstructed, we have determined that a variance is necessary.
Okay.
But it's not an entire fence.
Hang on a second. Okay, just. So that determination has been made. That's why the variance is before us.
Correct.
Okay.
And we respectfully submit that the repair of a portion of a fence is not the replacement of an entire fence, and therefore that section or the town council, the town attorney is mistaken in that regard.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. There's no, are you,
Oh,
staying with us here and answering questions, or
If
is
you'd
your
like.
client?
I thought you'd want to hear from the property owners next, but whatever your pleasure is.
Well, are you finished with your presentation?
I am indeed.
Are you finished? Is the applicant finished with his presentation?
I don't believe he is.
Okay, then we'd ask the applicant to come forward and give your name and address and tell us about your request for a variance.
Thank you
Yes.
once again for your time and consideration.
Okay. I'm Jay Yablon. I'm the property owner at 910 Northumberland. This is my wife Deborah of 45 years. And we've lived in the house since 1992 in November. So we're just past our 30th anniversary in the house. I was going to talk briefly. Would you prefer that I talk briefly, or would you like to just ask questions? I mean, I just kind of leave it to you folks.
I want to give you your ample time to present why. If you'd like to, that's entirely up to you.
Okay. Then what I will mention is the following. You have photos that I took. For all intents and purposes, this fence, we moved into the house in 95. The fence was there in 1992. The fence was there at the time we moved in 1992. To the best of our knowledge, based on everything we were told when we bought the house and everything else, the house was built in 1965 and the fence went in at that time. So the fence that we reconstructed in the summer of 2022 was 56, 57 years old at the time. If you look at the before photos that were submitted, you'll see that the before fence had a particular line along the property line between Northumberland Drive and Inman Road. You will see that the ornamental side of the fence, much as it was deteriorated, was facing the property. There was no, yes. Yeah.
Which photo were you on?
Yes, let me do this. May I approach to give a packet?
There we go.
Ah, I didn't see that. Thank you. Okay. That is helpful.
Wait, we've got the labels, we've got the packets. I need you to talk into the microphone, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
That is the photo I'm referring to, the one on the screen. Thank you, whoever got the photo up there. You will see sort of under the white paste on, you'll see like a rubber ring that was put on there in the process of maintaining the fence. In order to, in order to stop two of the fence sections from coming apart and making an opening for people to get through. You will see 4 tall hemlock trees behind the fence. Those hemlock trees are nice for privacy. They also, over time, turned into posts for the fence. So the fence leaned against them to prevent it from falling. This is a fence that was approaching 60 years of age. On the far side of the fence, even though you can't see it in the picture, part of what we did to maintain the fence over the course of time was to put in wooden posts at about a 30-degree angle that was propping up the fence from the inland side of the property and holding it up from falling. So all of these things were sort of, putting Band-Aids on this. And finally, in 2022, we reconstructed the fence. We repaired it with new material. And there's another section which would be the after picture, if somebody could please bring that up. And there in the after picture, you will see the fence is in the exact same position with the exact same orientation that existed before. So that's the before and after. That's the fence line, same place, same orientation. And as Bruce Trachtenberg mentioned, prior to the fence going in, I had a conversation with the neighbor directly behind us on Inman. I said, we're planning to, get this fence fixed by just putting in new material. We're planning to have it in the exact same position as is, same way. Is that okay with you? And she said, oh, thank God, to the effect of, oh, thank God, I'm glad that thing will finally be fixed. So there was no issue that we heard from the person behind us on Inman, at least the woman who lives behind us who I talked to. I did not speak to the husband about that. In any case, with that here, we moved into the house, as I said, in 1992. Section 220-25A4 regarding the ornamental sides of fences was adopted in 1997. That was 5 years after we moved into the house. We know that the before fence was in there at the time that we moved in, and our belief was that that fence went in 1965 along with the house and the pool. So clearly, that fencing was an established use at the time, it was a lawful non-conforming use that was established at the time that the code was changed in 1997 to deal with the fencing orientation. What we did was we maintained that fence in a condition that would not constitute a danger to the safety, health, or general welfare of the public. Under section 220-54, our repair of this non-conforming use was, and I'm quoting the statute, permitted.
Mr. Yablon,
Yes.
it's the purpose of this board to make a determination regarding the applicability of the codes for the
Correct.
Niskuna. I would appreciate it if you would stick to the facts
Okay.
as they pertain to this, which you have very, very well.
Mhm.
But your interpretation of the code itself is not necessary. That's what this board, and as well as your counsel there, has placed that on the record. So if you could stick to the facts, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me know that as a retired attorney, it's hard for me not to veer into arguing the law also.
As a current attorney, it's the purpose of this board to do that for you.
Yes, okay.
Hang on just a second. I'm not saying you can't. Could you just come up and, just so we can get you on the recording, please?
There is one part of the fence that did remain up, the original fence, that we did not repair beyond what you can kind of see in that picture. Beyond the repaired fence is still a little bit of the old fence. And it is also oriented towards, with the nicer part towards our home. My name is Deborah Yablon.
Thank you.
No. I brought this photo, I just took it the other day. No. Sure you
That's all right. We do have the photos that you provided. They are a part,
Photo I took yesterday.
they are a part of the record,
So those
okay?
These aren't part of the record, so.
Okay,
This is what my wife just mentioned.
thank you. And we'll ask our clerk to make that a part of the record as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. This is what my wife just mentioned as one of the facts. You'll see that outside the pool deck, we kept the old original fencing along Inman. So the repairs that we made were in the pool area specifically to shore up the perimeter of the pool in order to maintain safety, so nobody was going to get in through fences that were falling down or that, that had wood coming off of them. So that is what my wife just mentioned.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it, unless you have any factual questions for me.
Well, we do. there's no doubt that the fence as it exists right now is not in conformance with the zoning regulation for the town, correct? In other words, sir, the zoning regulation requires that the ornamental side be placed on the outside of the fence, the non-ornamental side on the inside, correct?
I would agree that you're sort of asking me a mixed legal and factual question. I
No, I'm
think.
simply asking the way your fence is put up, the way it's erected, it is not, does not have the ornamental side on the outside, the non-ornamental side on the inside. Is that right?
That is correct as a factual statement.
Thank you.
Can I just say one more fact? We understood it to be a grandfather clause,
Okay.
that since the fence was the age of what it was, and we were just replacing and repairing.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. I assume that this fence was erected for you, correct? Somebody put it up for you?
You mean this past year?
The new fence that
The fence-
exists today was put up for you?
Was
correct?
put up for us in 2022, correct, by somebody that we hired.
Who put it up?
A fencing company called Trust a Fence.
Okay. At any time when they were putting up the fence, discussing the fence with you, at any time during the erection of the fence, were you ever advised that the ornamental side had to be on the outside, the non-ornamental on the inside?
I was asked by the fence company when I was speaking to him about the facing of the fence. And I told him I understand that what the current town code says, but I also read the current town code to regard this as a lawful non-conforming use that can be continued so long as repairs are done in a proper fashion.
So if I understand you correctly, when you were discussing with the fencing contractor, putting the fence up, you were aware that the current code required the ornamental side to be on the outside. Is that right?
I was aware that if a brand-new fence that had
No,
never been there.
Please,
was put
please
up-
answer my question,
Okay,
not the
yes.
question you want to answer. Answer my
Okay.
question.
Go ahead.
What, hang on, counsel. This is not a court of law. This is, please, you've interrupted me twice.
Okay, I'll take the.
This
question.
is the zoning board of appeals meeting. We've provided you and the applicant with ample opportunity to answer questions or to put your case before us. Okay? It's our turn now to ask questions, and it's a simple question,
Please
okay?
go ahead.
And I understand the question.
Counsel, please sit down. Please.
Oh, no,
Let me-
I object.
let me talk to
Here,
him.
come
Talk to him.
No, I would like the applicant to answer my question. It's a simple question.
Okay,
Counsel, please, please. All I'm interested in is, were you aware when this fence was being put up or before it was put up, how the correct orientation under the code? I realize you may not agree with it, but under the code, you're aware of the correct orientation of the fence, meaning the ornamental side on the outside, the non-ornamental side on the inside. Were you aware of that?
I was aware that for a new fence. that
No,
had-
you're not answering my question. My question
I was
is,
aware of that particular code provision, and I understood it in a particular way that I believe we complied
and I
with.
understand how you, I understand your orientation. I'm just trying to find out. Let me explain why.
Mhm.
Many times we have people who come in here who put fences up and tell us after the fact, they weren't aware that it couldn't be 6 feet. They weren't aware that the ornamental side had to be on the outside when they were being put up, nor were they ever told by the fencing contractor that. That's the purpose of
Okay.
my question. If during the erection of the fence, you were aware that in its current status, what the code says, and you say you were,
I
correct?
was aware of what the code said, and I didn't believe it applied.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I understand. Maybe and it's probably my orientation to the photographs you've got here, but I see in one of your before photographs, what looks like chain link fence.
Which photo are you referring to?
I'm sorry. I don't mean you to make you jump up again, but
No, that was the front of the pool. That was the other side of that was the other
That was the
fence.
side, that was the side on our property to prevent people from our property, like our grandkids, from getting in when they should.
and I understand, I'm just trying to find out if there was something additional that was done, because then I see the nice, trying to think of how to describe it, the black fencing. And in fact, there's some,
The chain link
like
fencing
in the
was
photograph
replaced.
that's up on the screen here, on the far left side,
Yes.
the
The
nice
chain link-
black fencing.
Yes, the chain link was replaced with that.
And I was just trying to find out if in fact during this process where you replaced the old wooden fence
Right.
with a new wooden fence, if there was additional fencing which was replaced.
Yes.
We replaced all of the fencing within our own property that wasn't bordering anything, but was surrounding the pool.
Just a simple question.
Right.
Okay?
Was that the answer? Was that
Well,
an answer?
within that answer, I think was the answer.
Okay.
So there was some newer fence which was erected instead of the chain link fence. Okay. Now, I believe you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that did you ever have a conversation with your neighbors about the orientation of the fence? In other words,
Yes.
it's going to go up like it's anything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And who did you have that conversation with? Where in relation to your house? If I'm standing in front of your house, facing your house, which neighbor did you see?
It was the neighbor behind that fence you see in the photo who lives directly behind us on Inman. I peeked through the fence that at that point had not been reconstructed, through a section of it that was fallen enough that I could wave to the neighbor. I sort of signaled her to come over here. We had a very nice conversation. It was actually the second or third of several conversations we had during the project. Her first conversation, when I told her the fence was going to be repaired next week, she said, I don't know, these fencing contractors don't come when they tell you, and she was right. They came 2 months later. But in any case, it was about the third conversation. It was a good conversation. I said, we're about to start putting in the fence back here. We're planning to take out all the old materials and put in new materials. Our plan would be to put it in exactly the same line, facing the same way as it is previously, but it would be new materials. Are you okay with that? And she said to me, she breathed a sigh of relief and said, oh, it'll be great to finally have that thing fixed up.
And I did not go to your property, but what is on the other side of the fence as it exists? Does she have I assume it's a she, does she have a fence? Is it woods? What's over there?
It's a few trees and then it's their yard,
Okay, their backyard?
their backyard.
Okay.
And they too have a pool.
Do they have
An
any,
above- an
they
above
obviously
ground.
have fencing up of some sort?
It's an above ground.
It's an
Above ground pool, got it. All right, other questions by the board? Mr. Green?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just need you to give me a few yeses or nos,
Yes.
and if we need to follow up, I will.
Okay.
All right, is the height of the fence that we see in the photographs as it exists now the same height as the fence that was there before?
Correct. Yes.
And is the material the same before and after? In other words, wood.
Wood. Correct.
Is it the same shade of wood?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the same.
Shade, S-H-A-D-E, shade.
I'm colorblind. You're asking the wrong person. But
Is
Yes,
it
it
the
is-
same?
it's-
It's not
yes.
like mahogany and then
No,
some.
it's
Thank you.
pine fencing. It's aged. The other one was aged. This one is green, the normal.
Great. So it's the same, it's substantially the same
Yes.
type of
Exactly.
color of wood.
Exactly the same.
All right. And when they put the replacement fence in, is it in the same footprint as where the old fence was?
It is in the precise footprint the old fence is. I went out of my way to make sure the construction contractor knew it had to be in the exact same place.
Very good. I'm just curious, with the replacement fence, is it abutting the 4 trees that you referenced before?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
My apology, please. Just let me get the question out again.
Is it what?
No problems. Ready? The 4 trees that you mentioned that were helping the fence stand up before you replaced it,
Correct.
is the fence leaning up against those trees now?
No, it is not.
All right, great. All right, thank you. No further questions
May
for
I
me.
point out one other thing also? The,
Actually, you ready? Is it in response to a question I just asked?
it's an extension of a question.
Please, then go ahead. I'm interested to
Okay.
hear.
Not only does the fence not abut the trees, but I mentioned that on the Inman side of the property, there were 3 or 4 posts that were sort of like this that we had put in to hold the fence up. So it was going 4 or 5 feet out into the Inman yard. Certainly an eyesore for them. Those things are no longer there either.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Mr. Yablon?
Yes.
I know you talked about the,
No.
I know you spoke about, you indicated that the fencing company, you had a conversation with the fencing company before you installed the fence, and they indicated to you what? About the orientation of the fence?
They said to me, what should we do with the orientation? The towns can be picky about those sorts of things. And so that's when I said to them, my understanding of the codes is that we can replace the fence exactly as is, since it's been here since 1965.
And did you take any other steps and speak with anybody at the town with respect to the orientation of the fence after that conversation?
No,
Did you speak with anybody from the town before that conversation with the fence person?
no. I had done my own research of the codes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question for Laura is, how did this come to our attention in the town? Because I know they didn't get a permit or contacted the town, so how did we learn about that?
We have no batteries for a microphone. I would have to double check. I believe it was a complaint, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay, do we know if it's a complaint from the neighbor that claimed he talked to the wife, but the husband seemed to write to the, did they write us a letter? You read 4 letters.
So 2 of the letters in favor gave their
Right.
addresses. I think one was across the street and one was adjacent. And then the 2 that were against were anonymous, but
Anonymous.
referenced that they were, nearby.
Okay,
They did indicate that they were
Close.
neighbors
Yeah, they did indicate that they were close.
okay.
of some form.
Yeah.
But
Did
how
I answer your
did,
question?
so again, we learned about it from a phone call or?
Yeah, I mean, he may actually. I mean, Tom's not here, but I believe that he went out during the construction and stopped work ordered them,
Okay.
and then they came in for a building permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
may have,
Laura.
may have more information on your question if I could.
If you know the answer, go ahead.
When I met with Mr. Canizzo about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, one of the questions I asked him was how this came to the town's attention. He said, I don't know, but somebody took a phone call, let me get the note. So he reached into the file, pulled out a note and read it to me. And he said, okay, there's no name on it for who called the town, but then he just read the note that had been given to him verbatim. And he said, fencing back of 910 Northumberland, not installed with ornamental side facing the other way, and all sorts of garbage left behind the fence by the contractor.
Okay.
Those were two things. Now, from the second comment about the garbage behind the fence, I can infer pretty strongly that that was the neighbor behind us on Inman.
I'm not interested to know that
Yes,
information.
okay, because I
Just
think that's
wanted
what
to
you're
know
asking.
what brought it. So let me ask you a couple questions, Mr. Yablon.
Mhm.
When you learned that the ornamental supposed to be on the neighbor's side instead of your side, which that's usually the case, and I understand that the fence was there 57 years or 60 years. I understand you did something good to replace it, and basically you replaced it the same. You didn't change the orientation or anything. If you have to change it to the way it's supposed to be, have you looked into the cost and the burden that it will bring to you? So if you have to switch the fence to the other side?
Yes, I have looked into
Okay,
that.
can you tell me a little bit about that, what you found out?
Yes, what I have, well, what I know and what I have found out, the fence, as you see it there, on the other side of the fence has new posts that were seeded this past summer, that are dug 3-4 feet into the ground, that are sturdy, so it doesn't have to lean against the trees or have anything propping it up anymore the way it was previously. Those posts are in such a position that if we were told you must put an ornamental fence on the other side, what we could do is get panels that look exactly like those, bring them around to the other side of the fence, put them up on the posts that are already there, screw them in, and it's probably something that could be done within an hour or two,
Okay.
besides the
So
time
there-
to get
there
the
is a-
materials and bring it
You
in.
have a solution if that's the case?
We have a solution, which would be to make both sides ornamental effectively.
Okay. One last question for me, and when somebody's driving around the neighborhood, because what I'm looking at, there was a letter to the town that it might cause some undesirable to the neighborhood. So when people driving, can they see that fence? Who can see that fence? Only the neighbor could see it? Can you tell me? Because I didn't visit your
Yeah.
site.
The fence from the Inman side, the only person or the only people who could see the fence would be the people directly behind us on that property.
Okay.
From the Northumberland side, the lot at 910 and the adjacent lot at 918 are both 1.5 lots in relation to the other lots. The lot in between 910 and 918 was originally in the late 90s still on the maps for a possible road that would cut through between Inman and Northumberland. That came off the maps around 20 years ago. But because of that space where nothing is built between the two properties, it would be 914 Northumberland if there was a property there. That space provides the ability for people who are driving on the road between 910 and 918. There's sort of a clearance spot, and they can look through and see that side of the
But they have
fence.
to like really make a stop to look. So if somebody's passing through, they can't see it, right?
That's correct. Unless somebody's going to make a stop there and look and say, hey, let's go check out the fence over there,
Okay.
nobody's going to see
All
it
right.
casually.
Thank you for answering my question.
Mhm.
Mr. Yablon, I'm somewhat confused now by one of your answers.
Yes,
You indicated originally you had a conversation with the neighbor behind you that's most affected by this fence. And
correct.
she didn't indicate any opposition. In fact, she told you that she was in support of
Yes.
the installation of a new fence, correct?
Correct.
And then you indicated that Mr. Canizzo came over and he indicated to you that, in fact, the complainant, who was anonymous, had complained about the ornamental issue as well as trash left behind by the contractor. And you indicated to my colleague that you inferred from that the complainant was a neighbor on Inman.
Correct.
And are you inferring that it was a neighbor directly behind your house?
My inference, and it's only an inference, is that I spoke to one of the spouses and that perhaps it was the other spouse who complained.
Okay, so based upon your understanding, as you stand here today, you're not certain that the people behind your home on Inman approve of the fact that now they have posts and a non-ornamental side facing them, correct?
Well, I'm certain that the wife is fine with it. I don't know about anybody else in that household.
And Mr. Canizzo, when he came out with the stop work order, was the fence completely up at that point in time?
When Mr. Canizzo visited us for the first time with a document, the fence was completely up at the time.
Okay. All right. And have you spoken with any other, or are you aware of any other neighbors in your immediate vicinity who have indicated to you that they are opposed to the fence as it stands?
I have
currently?
not had a single person in the neighborhood tell me directly or indirectly that they are opposed to the fence. And on the flip side, I've had a number of people say that they're very happy with it.
And we could agree, based upon what you indicated previously, that this whole issue could be resolved within an hour by just putting the ornamental side, installing it on the reverse side of the existing fence.
We'd have to buy 9 fence panels that look just like that. We'd have to bring them over and we'd have to screw them in on the posts on the backside that are already perfectly in position to have fences screwed onto them.
And once you did that, you would still maintain the same purpose for which you installed the fence in the first place: privacy, privacy,
Safety.
safety to encapsulate the pool, right? So the basis for which you installed the fence in the first place would not be offended by installing the panels on the other side.
Right, and just making everything look better.
It would make it look better for the neighbor behind you as well, correct?
That would be true.
And it would be in compliance. It would be in compliance with the code, at least the town attorney's interpretation of the code, correct?
It would be in compliance with the code for fences that were not pre-existing before 1992, as I understand it. So yes.
How much will it cost us to do that? Could you go to the mic, ma'am?
My concern, and I hear what you're saying and what, that everybody would be happy if there was a nice side facing both. However, there's an extra cost with that we've already put a lot of money into this fence. And to put a back side on it is gonna, I don't know, the original fence was something like $10,000 a whole project.
The whole project.
So let's say 4,000, 3,000, that's whatever it is.
Ma'am, the post is already there, what he's saying.
Right.
So all he needs is the panels, and he's saying all he needs is 9 panels, and usually the hard work has been done.
I would, based on what I know, I haven't asked anybody for an estimate. I have asked what it would take to do the work, and which is response to one of the questions I was asked. I would have to guess that you're talking about, $300, $400, $500 worth of paneling and maybe another $300, $400 to have somebody come in. So my guess is probably under 1,000.
So Mr. Yablon, as Mr. Hoke and I were talking about this, so are you willing to, tonight, to put those panels on the other side and solve the situation?
If I am assured that this thing is entirely behind us, and that we can move on for a project which, besides this particular issue I'm here for tonight, turned into a rather major source of aggravation for us because the fencing company that you don't even want to get me started on was the worst contractor I've ever had to deal with in my life.
Mr. Yablon,
So
Mr. Yablon,
if I can put this behind us, then reluctantly I would agree to that.
so Mr. Yablon, I think you're entitled to move forward with your application tonight. Okay, you're entitled to move forward with your application tonight, and I think Mr. Lateef and myself are just inquiring of you whether you want to do that, okay, or whether we've figured out a solution here that, to my understanding, wouldn't require any variance at all.
Okay, my wife would like to move forward.
Okay, any other questions by members of the board? One thing, Laura, I don't know if you have it, but if you could include there's just a map of the area indicating the street numbers. If anyone wants to look at it, I'm happy to show it to you, but I'd like that to be a part of the record as well.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what did you just indicate?
Laura provided me it's a map that lists the street numbers, where the street numbers are, where the applicant's home is located in this neighborhood, and the other street numbers. And I just asked her to include that as a part of the
Thank you, Mr.
the record.
Mr. Chairman, I would have no objection, of course, it being part of the record. I just want to take a
Oh, absolutely.
take a moment, look at it. Yes, and that's, thank you. Yes.
All set?
Yep, I am. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome. Any other questions? Hearing none. As crazy as it may sound, anyone in the audience who would like to be heard on the issue? Hearing none. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion on the application for variance? Mr. Hope?
Mr. Chairman, I find this to be an incredibly difficult application. And I will say at the outset, when I first looked at this at first blush, it did not seem as difficult for me, but it's evolved into something much more difficult in my mind. I recognize, first of all, with respect to the application that's before me, I understand that there's a legal interpretation and there's been an issue concerning that legal interpretation. It's my understanding, and I am addressing this application from the perspective of an area variance being made to the board. And it's my understanding that the legal interpretation has been resolved previously, and that in fact an area variance is in fact necessary to move forward with this fence. Or to allow this fence to exist in compliance with the town code. So my motion here is based upon the criteria that we typically use in evaluating an area variance. There's 5 criteria that we must utilize in determining whether or not to grant the variance. And it is extremely close in my mind when you're balancing the factors that we must factor in determining whether, to move to approve or not approve the variance. I am going to make a motion to approve the variance, and let me go through the factors in my mind. And one of the reasons it's extremely close is the fact that the applicant has indicated that there is another feasible alternative, which is the first factor that we have to consider. There's an feasible alternative in that he could purchase for relatively, for some additional cost, additional panels to install on the non-ornamental side, which would obviate the need for a variance. Historically, when we're looking at 6-foot fences, we typically say, we're very strict in our interpretation of the code with respect to 6-foot fences. This isn't a 6-foot fence application, but it does share one of the factors that weighs in my mind with respect to 6-foot fence applications. When you have an existing fence, one of the factors we have to evaluate is whether the change is an undesirable, the alteration would result in an undesirable change in the neighborhood. in this particular application, like a 6-foot fence that pre-existed and was falling down, this fence was falling down and was previously oriented in the same fashion that it's oriented now. So I'm reluctant to dissuade people from making a positive change to their property that basically maintains the status quo, but actually improves the quality of or character of the neighborhood. So that is a big factor weighing in favor of the application. When you're looking at the other applications, whether this particular variance was substantial, I don't find it substantial for the same reasons. Basically, this fence existed in a deteriorated fashion in the exact same condition. We're not talking about the installation of a higher fence, which would be substantial. We're talking about the same size fence and the same orientation it always was. So for that reason, I don't believe it to be a substantial request. And I don't believe there's going to be any negative physical or environmental effects on the neighborhood. So there are 3 factors that mitigate in favor of the application. The 5th factor, whether this was self-created, I view this as what makes this a closed case. And this situation was the applicant basically rolled the dice and came up with a legal interpretation on his own without going to the town or investigating it further, even though he was put on notice and had independent knowledge that there was a risk involved with the course of action that he was taking. So I do find that this was self-created, and all requests for variances to a certain degree are self-created. But in this particular instance, because of the nature of the facts and circumstances surrounding it, and I'm not blaming the applicant. I know the applicant was operating under a good faith understanding or belief in what the law was or is in his mind. But in fact, he rolled the dice, and with respect to this, that does create a self-created hardship. This could have been avoided. So you have 2 factors going against you and 3 factors going in favor of you. And in my mind, the most important factor would be whether this would create an undesirable change in the neighborhood. And I find that, to the contrary, it would not. With respect to the neighbors, I understand that there's certain community opposition. With respect to anonymous neighbors, I have to give them less weight and credibility because I don't know where they're located in the neighborhood. And I got the sense from the application that it was a more generalized opposition to the fence as opposed to a specific objection to the orientation of the fence. So for those reasons, on an extremely close case in my mind, I would vote to approve the application.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to second the motion, and I'm going to say, add a few things to Mr. Hoke. First of all, we had many cases before us before, and some fences, they were there before the people moved in. And in this case, the fence is 60 years old. It was there. It needed help. The applicant fixed it, changed some of the stuff. When they found out, he looked into another way to try to fix the problem. Unfortunately, the post already up there, and I'm hoping the applicant and the neighbor, they can work something out even after this case is done to make it work with the neighbors. For all the reasons, and not only the neighbors, like Mr. Hope said, that they wrote to the town and objected to having this fence. We don't know where they live. We know the applicant talked to the neighbor who's most affected with the fence, and they seem to be thankful that the old fence is going to get replaced and so on. So I think for all these reasons and what Mr. Hoke said, I second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Can you call the roll?
Mr. Hook,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Lataif,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Gentile,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Daly,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
You rolled the dice and you got lucky. I'm telling you that. But based upon all of the information that's been presented and for the reasons stated, I'm going to vote yes on the motion to approve.
Mr. Antonikowski,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairman Frary.
I'm going to vote no. And let me see if I can explain why. While I understand all the factors that the applicant has considered, the one factor, and I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Hook on this matter, is normally when we look at a self-created matter, it's not persuasive, it's not determinative in connection with our considerations. When we've addressed fencing issues, height issues mainly, but any fencing issue, and especially one where the fence is up, the work's been done, the most important factor that we're asked to consider is what the applicant knew when the work was done, when they knew it, and what happened. Here we have a situation where the applicant was advised by the fencing company that there was a certain persuasion with the town of how the fence should be. The applicant knew that the fence in an existing position, even the old fence, was not consistent with the code. The applicant was aware of that, and I understand the applicant felt that for whatever they considered their legal position was, but at the end of the day, rather than just proceeding ahead, the applicant very easily could have gone to the town, discussed with the town, with the planning department, with the building inspector, with someone from the town, what the situation was. If necessary, they could have approached the town attorney and gotten a legal opinion or found out what the town was going to say about that. And you did not. You simply applied your own legal interpretation. And while I appreciate you have been or may be an attorney, it is not your position as a homeowner to interpret the town code for yourself. So in my mind, the issue of self-created was knowingly, not unknowingly, knowingly self-created. I think also as I look at the criteria, we have a neighbor who is directly affected by this. With all due respect to my brethren on this board, whether they're anonymous or whether they're known, and clearly we had two people who were not comfortable with giving their names or addresses, yet they did still speak out after they received notices. They would not have received notices if they were not neighbors. And they spoke out about that. We had two people who felt there was an undesirable effect on the neighborhood. And as this board has repeatedly done, is provide credence to how a certain project or variance affects a neighbor. And in my mind, that in addition was something that weighed heavily in terms of my no vote. I think that, and I acknowledge the fact that the replacement of the fence from its prior state to its current state, as you can see very easily from the photographs, is a great improvement. But if the applicant is perfectly willing to put panels up on the backside of the fence to resolve this issue, which would be an alternative, then why not have done that in the first place and we wouldn't be here? For those reasons, I will vote no. The variance is though, however, granted by a 6-1 vote. So your variance is granted.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all the business we have before us. We have a meeting on February 15th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Voice vote, a second?
Second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.